3 seconds. That's all it took for the maintenance man in the corner to dismantle 3 armed security guards and shatter everything the elites at the Grand Meridian Hotel thought they knew about power. The wealthy guests had spent the evening mocking him, targeting his daughter, laughing at his worn jacket. They didn't see the scars. They didn't recognize the unit insignia hidden beneath his collar. They had no idea who Ethan Cole really was or what he'd walked away from. Stay with me until the end of this story. Drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this reaches. Hit that like button. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The Grand Meridian Hotel rose above the city like a monument to excess. 43 floors of imported marble, crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's houses, and a lobby fountain that reportedly consumed enough water daily to supply a small neighborhood. It was the kind of place where doormen wore white gloves and guests competed over who could drop the most money with the least effort. Ethan Cole sat in a leather chair near the service corridor entrance. His daughter Lily perched beside him with a children's book open on her lap. She wasn't reading it. Her small fingers worked carefully, folding a square of yellow paper into precise creases, her tongue poking out slightly in concentration. "Another crane?" Ethan asked quietly. Oh, Lily didn't look up. "Miss Peterson said if you make 1,000, you get a wish. That right?" "Yeah, I'm going to make 1,001, just to be sure." Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. Lily was 7, small for her age, with dark hair that never quite stayed in the ponytail he attempted each morning. Her mother had been gone for 3 years, cancer, fast and cruel, and Lily had developed little rituals to feel safe. The paper cranes were the latest. "What are you going to wish for?" he asked. She finished a fold, squinting at the instructions in her book. "Can't tell you. It won't come true." "Ah, rules are rules. But it's about you," she said, glancing up with those serious brown eyes. "So it'll be a good one." He reached over and squeezed her shoulder. She leaned into his side, paper crane clutched carefully in both hands. They'd been waiting 40 minutes. The contract signing was supposed to happen at 7. It was now 7:40, and the hotel's facility manager, a man named Pemberton, had sent down word twice that he was handling something urgent and would be with them shortly. Ethan didn't mind waiting. He was used to it. In his line of work, commercial maintenance contracts mostly, delays were standard. Property managers like to make you wait. It established the hierarchy. What bothered him was the looks. The Grand Meridian's lobby was busy tonight. Some kind of charity gala happening on the 12th floor, men in tuxedos and women in gowns that probably cost what Ethan made in 6 months drifted through, champagne flutes in hand, laughter echoing off the vaulted ceiling. And they stared. Not openly, most of them. Just those quick, assessing glances, taking in Ethan's canvas work jacket, his off-brand jeans, his scuffed boots. Then their eyes would slide to Lily, her clearance rack dress, her dinosaur backpack, her secondhand shoes, and something would shift in their expressions. Pity, maybe, or disdain dressed up as concern. A woman in a silver gown passed close, trailing perfume that probably had a French name Ethan couldn't pronounce. She looked at Lily's paper crane, then at Lily, then at Ethan. "How quaint," she murmured to her companion, just loud enough to carry. Ethan kept his face neutral. Lily, thankfully, was focused on starting her next crane. "Daddy, can I have a snack?" "Sure, kiddo." He pulled a granola bar from his jacket pocket. "Try not to get crumbs everywhere." "I won't." She absolutely would, but that was fine. He'd brought napkins. Across the lobby, near the concierge desk, 3 security guards stood in a loose cluster. They wore the hotel's uniform, black suits, earpieces, the Grand Meridian crest on their lapels. But something about them felt off, too casual, too familiar with each other. One of them, a thick-necked guy with a shaved head, kept glancing toward Ethan and Lily, saying something that made the other two grin. Ethan recognized the type. He'd dealt with plenty of them over the years. Men who wore authority like a costume, who confused a uniform with actual power. The shaved-head guard, his name tag read Marcus, said something else. The shortest guard laughed outright. Lily looked up. "Why are they looking at us?" "Don't worry about it." "But, hey," Ethan kept his voice gentle. "You know that part in your book where the crane learns to fly?" "Yeah." "That's my favorite part. Can you read it to me?"
She brightened, flipping pages. It was a distraction, and they both knew it, but Lily was kind enough to pretend otherwise. She started reading, her voice soft and careful with the bigger words. Ethan half listened, tracking the lobby with peripheral awareness. It was a habit he couldn't break, even after all these years. Threat assessment, exit routes, people who didn't belong. And there were several who didn't belong. The security guards, for one. Their positioning was wrong, too clustered, not enough coverage, and they were focused inward toward the guests rather than outward toward potential external threats. Then there were the cameras. Ethan had counted 14 visible security cameras in the lobby when they'd first arrived. Now, glancing up casually, he could see that at least 6 had been repositioned, angled away from key areas or just turned off. The tiny red recording lights were dark. He frowned. That wasn't normal. Even for a private event, you didn't disable your security infrastructure. Daddy, you're not listening. Sorry, sweetheart, keep going. I'm listening now. Lily gave him a skeptical look but continued reading. Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Pemberton. Another 20 minutes. Sorry for delay. Wait in lobby. Great. Another 20 minutes of being a curiosity for people who thought wealth was the same as worth. Mr. Cole? Ethan looked up. A young woman stood a few feet away, maybe mid-20s, wearing a hotel staff uniform, the standard black vest and slacks ensemble that marked her as someone from guest services. She had her hands folded in front of her, professional smile in place, but her eyes were nervous. That's me? I'm supposed to escort you to a different waiting area. Mr. Pemberton's instructions. Ethan glanced at Lily, then back at the woman. What's wrong with this one? She hesitated. There's been a request that you wait somewhere more appropriate. Translation, somewhere the gala guests wouldn't have to see the poor people. We're fine here, Ethan said evenly. I understand, but we're fine. Here. The woman's professional smile cracked slightly. Please, sir, I'm just doing what I was told. Ethan was about to respond when Marcus, the shaved-head security guard, appeared beside the woman. Up close, he was bigger than Ethan had estimated, 6'3", maybe 240, with the kind of build that came from a gym rather than real work. Problem? Marcus asked, though he was looking at Ethan, not the staff member. No problem, Ethan said. We're waiting for a meeting. Yeah, well, guests are complaining. About? Marcus gestured vaguely at Ethan and Lily. You don't exactly fit the aesthetic. Lily had stopped reading. She was watching the guard with wide eyes, her paper crane forgotten in her lap. We'll be out of here soon, Ethan said quietly. Not causing any trouble. Didn't say you were causing trouble. Said you don't fit. Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Look, man, I get it. Times are tough. But this is a high-end establishment. People here expect a certain environment. We're waiting for a business meeting. Sure. And you can wait in the service area. More comfortable anyway. Got vending machines and everything. The staff woman looked miserable. Sir, please. It's fine, Ethan said, standing. He touched Lily's shoulder. Come on, kiddo, let's take a walk. But you said we had to wait. We'll wait somewhere else. Lily gathered her book and backpack, moving slowly, confused. Ethan could see the question forming in her eyes. Why are we leaving? What did we do wrong? He wanted to tell her they'd done nothing wrong, that this was about small people trying to feel big by making others feel small. But she was 7. She didn't need that lesson tonight. As they walked toward the service corridor, Marcus called after them. Hey, maintenance man, next time maybe call ahead. Make sure you're expected, yeah? Laughter rippled through the nearby guests, polite, restrained, but unmistakable. Ethan kept walking. The service corridor was exactly what you'd expect. Fluorescent lights, concrete floors, the smell of industrial cleaner. A few hotel staff passed by, kitchen workers, housekeeping, offering sympathetic glances but saying nothing. Ethan found a bench near a supply closet and sat. Lily climbed up beside him, backpack on her lap like a shield. Daddy? Yeah, sweetheart. Why were they mean to us? Ethan rubbed his face. How did you explain casual cruelty to a 7-year-old? How did you explain that some people measured worth in dollars and judged humanity by appearance? Some people, he said carefully,
think the way someone looks tells them everything they need to know, but they're wrong. Are we poor? The question hit him harder than it should have. We're doing okay. But not like them. No, not like them. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she reached into her backpack and pulled out the yellow paper crane. Here, this one's for you. I thought you were saving them for your wish. I can make more. She pressed it into his palm. It'll keep you safe. Ethan looked at the tiny origami bird, its wings folded with painstaking care, and felt something crack inside his carefully maintained composure. Thank you, kiddo. She leaned against him and they sat in silence. 20 minutes became 30, then 40. Ethan was about to text Pemberton again when raised voices echoed from somewhere deeper in the corridor. A woman's voice, sharp with fear, then a man's, low and threatening. Lily sat up. What's that? Stay here. But, Lily, stay, here. He stood, moving toward the sound. The corridor branched ahead. One path led to the kitchens, the other toward the loading docks and storage areas. The voices were coming from the storage side. Ethan turned the corner and stopped. 30 feet ahead, in a recessed area near a fire exit, two men had a young woman backed against the wall. She was maybe 22, 23, wearing what looked like an expensive cocktail dress. Her purse was on the floor, contents scattered. One of the men was holding her wrist, the other blocking her escape route. Hotel security uniforms, different guards from the ones in the lobby, but same arrogant posture. Don't understand, the woman was saying, her voice shaking. I just got lost looking for the restroom. Sure you did, the guard holding her wrist said. Or maybe you were looking for something else. VIP areas off limits to general guests. I didn't know. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it. The second guard smiled. But maybe we can work something out. Ethan's jaw tightened. He knew exactly what they were implying. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that this wasn't about a lost guest. He also knew he should walk away. Call hotel management. Call the actual police. Stay out of it. But then the woman tried to pull her wrist free, and the guard yanked her forward hard enough that she stumbled, and Ethan was moving before the rational part of his brain could stop him. Let her go. 3 words. Quiet. Calm. Both guards turned. The woman looked at Ethan with desperate hope. Who the hell are you? The wrist-grabbing guard demanded. His name tag read Davidson. Someone telling you to let her go. Davidson laughed. Yeah? And what are you going to do about it, janitor? Not a janitor. Maintenance janitor, whatever. Point is, you're nobody. Davidson's grip tightened on the woman's wrist. So walk away before you get hurt. Ethan held Davidson's eyes. He'd seen men like this before. Bullies who'd never been checked, who thought power came from intimidation and size. Last chance, Ethan said softly. Let her go. The second guard, Torres on his tag, stepped forward, hand dropping to the baton on his belt. You threatening us? No, giving you a choice. Oh, this'll be good. Torres pulled his baton, extending it with a sharp snap. Come on, tough guy. Let's see what you got. The woman whimpered. Davidson was grinning now, clearly enjoying the entertainment. Ethan didn't move, didn't tense, just stood there, hands loose at his sides, breathing steady. Daddy? Everyone turned. Lily stood at the corridor junction, her backpack clutched to her chest, eyes huge. Ethan's heart stopped. Lily, I told you. Is that your kid? Torres laughed. Oh man, this keeps getting better. What kind of father starts a fight with his daughter watching? Davidson chimed in. The stupid kind. Hey, little girl, you want to see your daddy get his ass kicked? Lily's lower lip trembled, and something in Ethan went very, very quiet. Lily, he said, his voice absolutely calm, turn around and go back to the bench. Right now. She hesitated. Now, sweetheart. She turned and ran. The moment she disappeared around the corner, Ethan looked back at the 2 guards. Torres was still grinning, baton ready. Davidson had finally released the woman's wrist, but was standing close enough to grab her again if needed. Smart move, sending the kid away, Torres said. Wouldn't want her to see. Ethan moved. Not fast, not with any visible effort. Just moved. 3 steps closed the distance. Torres swung the baton.
A decent swing, actually, with real force behind it, but Ethan wasn't where the baton expected him to be. He'd shifted left, inside Torres's reach, and his hand came up almost gently to catch Torres's wrist. There was a twist, a brief moment of leverage that Torres's muscles couldn't counter. Then Torres was on his knees, baton clattering to the floor, his arm locked in a position that made his shoulder scream. Davidson lunged forward, reaching for Ethan's jacket. Ethan released Torres and turned, letting Davidson's momentum carry him past. A light push at the right moment sent Davidson stumbling into the wall. Not hard. Just enough to knock the wind out of him. Torres tried to stand, reaching for something on his belt, pepper spray maybe, or a backup weapon. Ethan's boot came down on Torres's hand, light pressure, not enough to break anything. "Don't," Ethan said quietly. Torres froze. Davidson pushed off the wall, face red with humiliation and anger. "You're dead. You just assaulted security. You were harassing a guest. I intervened. That's not... We were doing our jobs. Your job is harassment? You don't know what you're talking about." "No?" Ethan's voice stayed level, but something in his tone made Davidson stop. "Then explain why the cameras in the lobby are disabled. Explain why you're down here, away from your actual posts. Explain why this young woman's purse is on the ground and you had her cornered." Silence. The woman took the opportunity to scramble backward, putting distance between herself and the guards. She grabbed her scattered belongings, stuffing them into her purse with shaking hands. "You okay?" Ethan asked her, not taking his eyes off the guards. Yes, thank you." Her voice was steadier than expected. "They said I wasn't allowed in the VIP section, but I was just..." "You don't have to explain anything to them." Torres shifted under Ethan's boot. "Get off me. You gonna behave? Just get the hell off." Ethan applied the slightest additional pressure. Not pain exactly, just a reminder of how easily this could go worse. "Try again." Torres's jaw worked. "Fine. Yeah, I'll behave." Ethan stepped back, giving both guards space to stand. They did slowly, watching him with expressions that had shifted from mockery to calculation. Davidson's hand drifted toward his radio. "I wouldn't," Ethan said. "Yeah? Why not?" "Because then you'll have to explain what you were doing down here, and I don't think your story's going to hold up." "Our story?" Davidson's laugh was harsh. "Nobody's going to believe you over us. You're just some maintenance grunt who assaulted hotel security. That's how this plays." "Maybe." "Definitely." Davidson keyed his radio. "All units, we have a situation in..." The woman's voice cut through. "I wouldn't finish that sentence if I were you." Everyone turned to look at her. She'd finished gathering her things and now stood with her purse under one arm, her other hand holding a phone. The phone's camera was pointed directly at the guards. "I've been recording," she said calmly, "since you first cornered me. Audio and video, crystal clear. Your faces, your name tags, your threats, everything." Davidson went pale. "You can't..." "I already did. And it's uploading to a cloud server right now, so breaking my phone won't help." She looked at Ethan. "You said the lobby cameras were disabled?" "6 that I counted." "Interesting." The woman's voice had completely changed. No more fear, just cold assessment. "Because that suggests coordination, which suggests this wasn't random harassment, which suggests something much bigger." Torres found his voice. "Who the hell are you?" The woman smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Someone you really shouldn't have touched, but thank you for helping me confirm my suspicions." Footsteps echoed from the main corridor. Multiple people, moving fast. "That'll be actual security," the woman said. "The kind that answers to the hotel owners, not to whoever's paying you off." Davidson and Torres exchanged a look. Without another word, they bolted, not toward the main corridor, but deeper into the service areas, toward what Ethan assumed was a secondary exit. They didn't get far. 4 men in different uniforms, hotel security, but with supervisor insignia, appeared from the opposite direction, cutting off the escape route. Behind them came more staff, including a woman in an expensive suit who radiated authority. "Nobody move," the suit woman said. Her voice carried the kind of command that came from years of being obeyed. She looked at Ethan, at the young woman with the phone, at the 2 guards now standing with their hands raised. "Someone want to tell me what's happening in my hotel?" The young woman stepped forward. "Ms. Chen, I presume? We spoke on the phone last week. I'm Alexandra Reeves."
Recognition flashed across Chen's face. Ms. Reeves, we weren't expecting you until tomorrow. I like to arrive early.
See things as they actually are. Alexandra held up her phone. And it's a good thing I did. Your security has some problems. What kind of problems? The kind where your guards disable cameras, harass guests, and operate what I suspect is a protection racket in your VIP areas. Alexandra's voice was pleasant, conversational. The kind where someone's been skimming from your high-end clientele for months, and your legitimate security has been systematically kept in the dark. Chen's expression went from confusion to horror to fury in about 3 seconds flat. She turned to the supervisors. Detain these two, separate rooms, no communication, and someone get me the head of security, now. As the supervisors moved in, Davidson made one last desperate attempt. This is bullshit. We didn't do anything. That guy, he pointed at Ethan, attacked us. We were defending ourselves. Really? Alexandra turned her phone screen toward Chen. Because my recording shows something different. Chen watched for maybe 10 seconds before her face hardened further. She looked at Ethan. Sir, I apologize for what you just experienced in my hotel. Can I get your name? Ethan Cole. I'm here for a meeting with your facilities manager. Pemberton? That meeting's canceled. You're coming with me. Not a request, Mr. Cole. You just prevented a major incident and I need your statement. Plus, her eyes flicked to his collar, where his jacket had shifted during the brief altercation, exposing a few inches of a tattoo on his collarbone. I have questions about exactly how a maintenance contractor learned to disarm trained security guards in under 5 seconds. Ethan's hand moved reflexively to adjust his collar, covering the tattoo. But Chen had already seen it. So had Alexandra, whose expression had shifted to sharp interest. It's just a tattoo, Ethan said. That's not just a tattoo, Chen replied quietly. That's a unit insignia, one I haven't seen in years, one that's not supposed to exist anymore. The corridor seemed to contract. Ethan felt the familiar weight of old decisions pressing down. I need to check on my daughter, he said. Of course, but after that, I give my statement and leave. That's it. Chen studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Fair enough. Ethan turned and walked back toward the bench where he'd left Lily. She was exactly where he'd told her to be, sitting with her backpack and her book, making another paper crane with methodical precision. She looked up when he approached. Are you okay? I'm fine, kiddo. Were those bad men? Yeah, but they won't bother anyone anymore. Lily set down her crane. You were gone for a long time. I know, sorry. I made you 3 more cranes for extra safety. Ethan sat beside her and pulled her into a hug. She was shaking slightly. Adrenaline, fear, the general confusion of watching adults do incomprehensible adult things. You did good, he said into her hair. Listening to me, going back when I told you to. I wanted to help. You did help by being safe. She nodded against his chest. Behind them, the corridor was filling with people, more security, hotel management, and now, distantly, the sound of police sirens. Alexandra appeared, her heels clicking on the concrete. Mr. Cole? Ethan looked up but didn't release Lily. Thank you, Alexandra said simply, for stepping in. A lot of people wouldn't have. A lot of people should. True, but they don't. She glanced at Lily, then back at Ethan. Ms. Chen wants statements from both of us. I've already given mine. She'll probably want to talk to you for a while. Not tonight. I told her you'd say that. Alexandra smiled. I convinced her to wait until tomorrow. Here's my card. We should talk. Ethan took the card without looking at it. About what? About why you're working maintenance contracts when you've clearly got a very different skill set. About what I'm actually doing here. About whether you might want to be part of something bigger than... She gestured vaguely at the corridor. This. Not interested. You haven't heard what I'm offering. Don't need to. I've got a daughter to raise. That's the only thing I'm interested in. Alexandra's expression softened. I get that. I do. But at least think about it. What happened tonight? That's just the surface. This hotel's connected to something much larger. And people like you, we could use people like you. Ethan stood, lifting Lily with him. I'm not people like me anymore. I'm just a father with a very specific set of skills that you clearly haven't forgotten. Skills I don't use. You just did. He didn't have an answer for that. Alexandra nodded, as if confirming something to herself. Tomorrow, when you're ready, the card has my number. She walked away, leaving Ethan standing with Lily in his arms and a business card he had no intention of calling in his pocket. Police filtered through over the next hour. Ethan gave a brief statement to a detective who looked perpetually tired and didn't seem particularly surprised by anything he heard. Apparently, there'd been complaints about the Grand Meridian's security for months, but nothing concrete enough to investigate. Until tonight. You happened to come along at the right time, the detective said. Lucky, I guess. Yeah, lucky. The detective didn't sound convinced. You military, Mr. Cole? Was. What branch? Army. What'd you do? Ethan met the detective's eyes. Maintenance? The detective smiled faintly. Right. Maintenance. Sure. He closed his notebook. You're free to go. We'll be in touch if we need anything else. By the time Ethan and Lily left the hotel, it was nearly midnight. The gala had been shut down early, guests filtering out with expressions ranging from annoyed to scandalized. Ethan caught fragments of conversation as they passed. Can you believe the security? My necklace could have been stolen. Absolutely unacceptable. Nobody looked at Ethan and Lily now. They were invisible again, just background noise in other people's dramatic evening. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. Ethan's truck was parked 3 blocks away in a public lot because the hotel's garage charged $40 for the first hour. Lily walked beside him, holding his hand, her backpack bouncing with each step. Daddy? Yeah, kiddo? What's going to happen to those men? They'll probably go to jail. Good. She paused. Is that bad? That I think it's good? No. It means you know right from wrong. They walked in silence for another block. Daddy? That lady gave you her card. She did. Are you going to call her? No. Why not? Ethan squeezed her hand gently. Because I've got everything I need right here. Lily seemed to accept that. They reached the truck, a 15-year-old Ford with rust spots and a temperamental starter, and Ethan lifted her into her booster seat, buckling her in with practiced efficiency. As he closed her door and walked around to the driver's side, he caught his reflection in the window. Tired eyes. Lines that hadn't been there a few years ago. The ghost of someone he used to be, visible for just a moment in the glass. He got in, started the engine, it caught on the second try, a good night, and pulled out of the lot. Lily was asleep before they hit the highway. Her head tilted against the window, paper cranes clutched in her lap. Ethan drove through the empty streets, replaying the evening, the mockery, the confrontation, the moment he'd moved without thinking, muscle memory taking over, years of training surfacing like it had never left. He'd walked away from that life, built something different, something simple. But simple had a way of getting complicated. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Pemberton sends his apologies. Contract's yours if you still want it. We can reschedule. Chen another buzz. Same number. Also, I meant what I said. I have questions. Not tonight, but soon. You saved someone tonight, Mr. Cole. That matters. Ethan deleted both messages without responding. At a red light, he glanced back at Lily. Still asleep. Still clutching her paper cranes like they could protect against whatever the world might throw at them. He thought about what she'd asked earlier. Are we poor? And he thought about the people in that hotel, with their designer clothes and their casual cruelty, measuring worth in dollars and status. They had money, but Lily had paper cranes folded with love. He knew which one actually mattered. The light turned green. Ethan drove home, windows cracked, radio playing something soft and forgettable. Tomorrow, he'd make Lily pancakes. They'd spend Saturday at the library, maybe the park, if the weather held. Simple things. Good things. The Grand Meridian Hotel, with its secrets and its corruption and its dangerous questions, would become just another story they didn't talk about. Except it wouldn't. because Alexandra Reeves's card was still in his pocket and Chen's deleted messages were still in his phone's data, and somewhere in the city, police were unraveling something that Ethan had inadvertently exposed. And his old unit's insignia, the one he'd kept hidden for 7 years, had been seen by people who recognized it. Simple was over. Ethan just didn't know it yet. The pancakes were burning. Ethan smelled them before he saw the smoke curling from the pan, and he lunged across the kitchen to yank it off the burner. Too late. The edges were black, the centers still somehow raw, and the kitchen smoke detector chose that exact moment to remember it existed. The shrill beeping split the Saturday morning quiet like a hacksaw through sheet metal. "I got it!" Lily appeared in her pajamas, dragging a chair across the linoleum. She climbed up, grabbed a dish towel, and started waving it beneath the detector with the weary expertise of a kid who'd done this too many times. "Sorry, kiddo," Ethan muttered, scraping the ruined pancakes into the trash. "It's okay, we can have cereal." "We had cereal yesterday." "Cereal's good every day." The detector finally shut up. Lily climbed down, folded the towel with unnecessary precision, and returned the chair to its spot at the table. 7 years old and already acting like the adult in the room. Ethan started fresh batter while Lily got bowls and spoons, moving around each other in their small kitchen with practiced efficiency. Their apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building that had been under renovation since they'd moved in 18 months ago. The renovation seemed to involve a lot of noise and very little actual improvement. "You didn't sleep good," Lily observed, pouring cereal. "Didn't sleep well." "That either." She wasn't wrong. Ethan had managed maybe 3 hours, his brain churning through the previous night on an endless loop, the guards' faces, Alexandra's knowing look, Chen recognizing the tattoo, the feel of Torres's wrist in his hand, the muscle memory clicking into place like it had been waiting all these years for permission. "Bad dreams," he said, which wasn't quite a lie. Lily added milk to her bowl with the concentration of a surgeon. "About the bad men?" "Something like that. They can't hurt us now, right? The police took them." "Right." But even as he said it, Ethan's phone buzzed on the counter. He ignored it. It had been buzzing on and off since 6 a.m. Unknown numbers, mostly. A few he recognized from past contract jobs. And one persistent caller whose number he'd looked up out of curiosity. Alexandra Reeves. The batter sizzled as it hit the reheated pan. This time, Ethan actually watched it, flipping at the right moment, achieving something close to golden brown. "Victory," he announced, sliding 2 onto Lily's plate. She examined them critically. "They're a little lumpy." "Lumpy builds character." "That's not a real thing." "Sure it is. Eat your character-building pancakes." She giggled, drowning them in syrup. Ethan made 2 more for himself and sat across from her, trying to summon the energy to pretend this was a normal Saturday. His phone buzzed again. Lily looked at it, then at him. "You gonna answer?" "Nope." "What if it's important?" "Then they'll leave a message." She accepted this with a shrug and returned to her pancakes. Ethan ate mechanically, tasting nothing, watching her instead. The way she cut her food into precise squares, the way she hummed between bites, some song from school he didn't recognize, the way she was completely, blissfully unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. After breakfast, Lily wanted to go to the park. It was cold but clear, the kind of November morning where the sky looked scrubbed clean and your breath came out in white puffs. Ethan bundled her into her coat, the one that was getting too small. He needed to find money for a new one soon, and they walked the 4 blocks to Jefferson Park. The playground was nearly empty, too cold for most families, apparently. Lily made a beeline for the swings while Ethan claimed a bench with a clear sightline to all the play equipment. Old habits. He'd been sitting there maybe 10 minutes when a man in an expensive overcoat sat down at the other end of the bench. Not close enough to be threatening, but not far enough to be coincidental. Ethan didn't look at him directly. "Taken." "Public bench," the man replied. His voice was smooth, educated, with the faintest trace of an accent Ethan couldn't place. "I believe there's room for 2. "Not today." "Mr. Cole, I'm not here to cause problems." That made Ethan turn. The man was maybe 50, with silver hair and the kind of face that looked like it had spent a lot of time making important decisions. He wore thin leather gloves and carried a newspaper folded under one arm like it was still 1987. "Do I know you?" Ethan asked. No, but I know you, or rather, I know who you used to be. The man glanced toward the playground, where Lily was swinging as high as the chains would allow. Lovely daughter, she looks like her mother. Every muscle in Ethan's body went tight. You need to leave, right now. In a moment. First, I'd like to discuss your situation. I don't have a situation.
You interfered with a carefully constructed operation last night. That creates a situation. Ethan's hand moved to his phone, but the man raised a gloved hand in a placating gesture. I'm not threatening you, Mr. Cole. Quite the opposite. I'm here to offer you a way out. Out of what? The mess you've stumbled into. The man unfolded his newspaper, revealing not news, but a photograph printed on regular paper. It showed Ethan from the previous night, taken from a security camera angle he hadn't noticed. His collar was open, the unit tattoo clearly visible. This image is currently in the possession of several very interested parties. Hotel management, naturally, the police, and unfortunately, some people who would very much like to confirm whether you're who this suggests you are. Ethan's throat was dry. I don't know what you're talking about. Raven Unit, disbanded 7 years ago after the Kandahar incident. Officially, all members were killed or discharged. Unofficially, the man smiled. Well, here you are. Daddy, Lily called from the swings. Watch this! Ethan waved at her, forcing a smile he didn't feel while his mind raced through options and outcomes. This man knew too much, way too much, which meant he was either former military with high-level access, intelligence community, or something worse. What do you want? Ethan asked quietly. I want to help you disappear. Again. Properly, this time. In exchange for? Information, just information, about the Kandahar incident, about what really happened in those final 48 hours before Raven went dark. Ethan stood. This conversation's over. Mr. Cole, my daughter's watching. You've got 3 seconds to walk away before I make you. The man's expression didn't change. You're being irrational. I'm offering you protection. 2 seconds. They'll come for you. The people who wanted Raven buried. They'll come, and they won't be as polite as I am. 1. The man sighed, stood, and tucked the photograph back into his newspaper. My card's under the bench. When you change your mind, and you will, call the number. It's the only number on there. Don't wait too long. He walked away without looking back, disappearing into the trees that lined the park's eastern edge. Ethan waited 30 seconds, then checked under the bench. Sure enough, a plain white business card with a single phone number printed in black ink. No name, no company, nothing else. He pocketed it because leaving it felt more dangerous than taking it. Daddy, did you see? Lily was off the swings now, running toward him with pink cheeks and windblown hair. See what, kiddo? I went so high. I saw. Very impressive. Can we go to the library now? You promised. He had promised. It was their Saturday ritual. Park, then library, then lunch at the sandwich place that gave Lily extra pickles without charging. Yeah, Ethan said, ruffling her hair. Let's go. But as they walked toward the library, Ethan found himself checking over his shoulder every few steps, scanning faces, looking for threats, all the old instincts flooding back like they'd never left. The library was warm and smelled like old paper and floor wax. Lily made her usual beeline for the children's section, while Ethan found a chair near the windows where he could watch both her and the entrance. His phone buzzed. Another unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Cole? A woman's voice, professional but urgent. Who's this? Officer Sandoval, Metro PD. We met briefly last night. I need to speak with you about the Grand Meridian incident. Ethan kept his voice low. I already gave my statement. I know, this is about something else. Can you come to the station? When? Now would be ideal? I'm with my daughter. A pause. Mr. Cole, 2 of the guards you encountered last night are dead. The library seemed to tilt. What? Dead. Both found in their holding cells this morning. We're treating it as a double homicide, and we need to ask you some follow-up questions. I was home all night. My daughter can confirm we're not suggesting you're involved,
But you were the last person to have physical contact with them before their arrest. We need to establish a timeline. Ethan rubbed his face. I can't come now. I've got my kid. Bring her. We have a family waiting area. This won't take long. It was phrased as a request, but Ethan heard the weight behind it. Refusing would make him look guilty. Cooperating might keep him in the clear, or it might pull him deeper into whatever this was. Give me an hour, he said. See you then. She hung up. Lily appeared with a stack of books taller than her head. Can I get all of these? You can get 5. But I want to read them all. Then come back next week for the others. She groaned but started the agonizing process of choosing. Ethan sat there, phone in hand, trying to figure out how 2 men in police custody ended up dead less than 12 hours after their arrest. Professional hit. Had to be. Which meant someone with serious resources wanted those guards silenced. Which meant whatever they'd been part of was bigger than a simple protection racket. Alexandra had said as much last night. This hotel's connected to something much larger. He should have listened. After Lily selected her 5 books and they checked out, Ethan walked them back to the apartment and called Mrs. Chen from downstairs. She was their neighbor, a retired teacher who babysat sometimes when Ethan had evening contracts. I need a favor, he said when she answered. Emergency. Can you watch Lily for a couple hours? Mrs. Chen agreed without hesitation, and within 10 minutes Lily was settled in the apartment next door with hot chocolate and her library books while Ethan drove to the police station. The building was downtown, concrete and glass, built in the optimistic 1970s and aging badly. Officer Sandoval met him in the lobby.
She was younger than he'd thought from their brief interaction the previous night, maybe early 30s, with dark hair pulled into a no-nonsense ponytail and tired eyes that suggested she'd been up all night. Mr. Cole, thanks for coming. Didn't seem like I had a choice. You always have a choice. She led him through security, up 2 floors, into a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and stress. Coffee? I'm good. Suit yourself.
She sat across from him, opening a folder. Let me catch you up. Davidson and Torres were found unresponsive in their cells at 0600 this morning during routine checks. Both had been dead approximately 2 hours. Cause of death appears to be poisoning, though we're waiting on full tox screens. Poisoning how? Uncertain. No signs of forced ingestion. No visible injection marks. Medical examiner thinks it might have been absorbed through skin contact. Ethan's mind went immediately to the kind of substances that could do that. Military-grade stuff, intelligence community toys, not something your average criminal had access to. You think I had something to do with this? He said. Did you? No? Good, because your alibi checks out. Building cameras show you arriving home at 0130, not leaving until this morning. Sandoval leaned back. But here's what bothers me. Davidson and Torres were arrested at 2200. They were processed, put in separate holding cells, no contact with each other or other detainees. Between arrest and death, the only people who had access to them were uniformed officers and the intake nurse who did their medical screening. You're saying it was an inside job. I'm saying someone with badge access wanted them dead before they could talk. Ethan processed that. What about the woman? Alexandra Reeves. She recorded everything. She'd be the obvious target if someone wanted to bury this. Ms. Reeves is fine. She's also not particularly concerned, which I find interesting. Meaning, Sandoval pulled another paper from her folder. Meaning Alexandra Reeves isn't just some random guest. She's the daughter of Marcus Reeves, who owns the venture capital firm that holds a controlling stake in the Grand Meridian's parent company. She's also been conducting an independent investigation into irregularities across their entire hotel chain for the past 6 months. So she was there on purpose. Very much so. And your intervention gave her exactly the evidence she needed to blow the whole thing open. Sandoval watched Ethan carefully. Which brings me to my actual question. How does a maintenance contractor know how to disarm trained security guards in under 5 seconds? There it was. The question he'd been expecting since last night. I got lucky, Ethan said. Bullshit. I was in the army, learned some things. What kind of things? Basic combat training, same as anyone. Sandoval smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Mr. Cole, I've seen basic combat training. That wasn't it. The way you moved, the way you controlled two armed men without seriously injuring them, the way you assessed the situation before engaging, that's advanced training, specialized training.
I don't know what to tell you. How about the truth? Ethan met her eyes. I was in the army. I got out. I started over. That's the truth. What unit? Logistics. Try again. That's what my discharge papers say. Discharge papers can be fabricated. They stared at each other across the table. Sandoval finally broke eye contact, shuffling her papers like she was trying to decide something. Look, she said, her voice softer. I'm not trying to jam you up, but two men are dead, and this investigation just got a lot bigger. Whatever you're hiding, it's going to come out. Better it comes out to me than to whoever wanted those guards dead. I can't help you. Can't or won't. Both. Sandoval closed her folder. Fine. You're free to go. But Mr. Cole, watch your back. Because if I've connected these dots, other people have too. Ethan stood. Am I going to need a lawyer? Not from me, but I'd keep one on speed dial anyway. He left the station feeling like he'd just painted a target on his own back. The November sun was bright but provided no warmth. He sat in his truck for 5 minutes, trying to think through his options. Run. Pack up Lily and disappear. Change their names, move somewhere small and remote, start over for the 3rd time. But running meant looking guilty. Meant spending the rest of their lives watching for shadows. Stay. Face whatever was coming. Hope that cooperation and transparency would keep them safe. But staying meant exposing Lily to danger he'd spent 7 years trying to leave behind. His phone rang. Alexandra Reeves. Against his better judgment, he answered. Mr. Cole, we need to talk. I'm done talking. 2 men died last night because of what they knew. You're next on that list if you don't let me help you. How do you figure? Because whoever's running this operation knows you saw their faces, knows you compromised their security, and knows you have the skills to be a serious problem. Her voice was calm, matter of fact. They tried to clean up the guards. When that investigation goes nowhere, they'll move on to loose ends. You're a loose end. Thanks for the pep talk. I'm serious. These people don't mess around. They've been running protection rackets, embezzlement schemes, and worse, across a dozen properties for at least 2 years. Last night, you handed me evidence that's going to bring down some very powerful people. They're going to want revenge. Ethan watched a young couple walk past his truck, laughing about something, completely oblivious to everything wrong with the world. What do you want from me? He asked. Meet me. Let me explain what's actually happening, then decide whether you want to help or hide. I'm not interested in helping. You already helped, last night, when you could have walked away and didn't. That was different. How? It was right there in front of me. I didn't have to go looking for it. Alexandra was quiet for a moment. Fair enough, but it's still coming for you whether you look for it or not. At least let me give you the information you need to protect yourself. And your daughter. The mention of Lily made Ethan's jaw tighten. Don't. Don't what? Use my kid as leverage. I'm not. I'm stating facts. You have a daughter. These people don't care. If they decide you're a threat, they'll use her to get to you. Ethan wanted to argue, but he couldn't. She was right. He'd seen it before, in places most people couldn't imagine. The things people did when they got desperate. One meeting, he said. Somewhere public. Somewhere safe. Monroe's Diner, you know it? Yeah. 1 hour. She hung up. Ethan sat in his truck, staring at nothing, trying to figure out how a simple contract signing had turned into this. Then he started the engine and drove back to his apartment to pick up Lily from Mrs. Chen's. When he arrived, Lily was asleep on Mrs. Chen's couch, a book open on her chest, her paper cranes arranged in a careful line on the coffee table. She was telling me about last night, Mrs. Chen said quietly, meeting Ethan at the door. About the bad men at the hotel. It wasn't as dramatic as she probably made it sound. Mrs. Chen gave him a look that said she knew better. Ethan, that child is worried about you. She's been making those cranes for weeks now. Every time you leave for a job, she makes more. She thinks they keep you safe. They do, Ethan said, though it came out rougher than intended. They remind me what I'm working for. Just be careful, whatever this is.
He gathered Lily into his arms. She stirred but didn't wake, just nestled her head against his shoulder. Back in their apartment, he laid her on the couch and covered her with a blanket. Then he sat at their kitchen table and stared at the three things in front of him: Alexandra's business card, the plain white card from the man in the park, and his phone showing 6 missed calls from numbers he didn't recognize. 3 choices, 3 different paths. Work with Alexandra. Trust that her resources and connections could protect them while exposing whatever criminal network had taken root in her family's hotels. Call the man from the park. Trade information about Raven Unit for a clean disappearance. Again. Or ignore everything. Hope it went away. Pretend he was just a maintenance contractor who'd gotten lucky in a fight. The third option was a fantasy, and he knew it. The man from the park represented running. Temporary safety bought with old secrets, followed by a lifetime of looking over his shoulder. Alexandra represented staying, fighting, using the skills he'd buried to actually fix something instead of just walking away. He thought about Lily, asleep in the next room, trusting that her paper cranes would keep him safe, trusting that the world made sense and good people were protected. He thought about the woman those guards had cornered, the fear in her eyes, the way Alexandra had stood there recording everything, putting herself at risk to gather evidence. He thought about Davidson and Torres, dead in their cells before they could talk, professional killers cleaning up loose ends, and he thought about the 7 people from Raven Unit who'd survived Kandahar only to be erased from official records. The promises made and broken. The lives destroyed because someone decided the truth was too dangerous. Ethan picked up Alexandra's card and dialed. She answered on the first ring. "You're coming. 1 hour. Monroe's Diner. You're buying. Deal." He hung up and checked on Lily one more time. Still asleep, still safe, still believing in paper cranes and fathers who came home. He had 55 minutes to figure out how to keep that belief intact, and absolutely no idea if it was possible. Monroe's Diner occupied a corner lot that had probably been prime real estate 40 years ago, before the highway bypass redirected traffic and left this part of town feeling like a place time forgot. The building was all chrome and red vinyl, with a neon sign that only half worked and a parking lot full of potholes that could swallow a tire. Ethan pulled in 20 minutes early, circling the block twice before choosing a spot with clear sightlines to both entrances. Old habits. He checked his phone. Mrs. Chen had texted that Lily was still asleep and not to rush. Good. He needed time to think without worrying about her overhearing something she shouldn't. Inside, the diner smelled like coffee and grease and the kind of nostalgia people paid good money to recreate but never quite got right. A waitress with gray roots and a name tag reading Dolores waved him toward any open booth. Ethan chose one in the back corner where the lighting was dim and he could watch the door. He ordered coffee. It came in a chipped mug, strong and bitter, exactly what he needed. Alexandra arrived exactly on time, which somehow didn't surprise him. She'd changed from last night's cocktail dress into dark jeans, a leather jacket, and boots that looked expensive but practical. Her hair was pulled back and she wore minimal makeup. Without the formal wear, she looked younger, maybe late 20s instead of the polished 30-something she'd projected at the hotel. She slid into the booth across from him without asking permission. "You came," she said. "You bought my curiosity. Don't waste it." Dolores appeared with a second coffee mug. Alexandra ordered scrambled eggs and toast. Ethan shook his head when the waitress looked at him. "You should eat," Alexandra said after Dolores left. "This is going to take a while." "I'm fine. Suit yourself." She wrapped both hands around her mug, studying him with the same sharp assessment she'd used in the hotel corridor. "How much do you know about my family's business?" "Hotels. You said your father owns the venture capital firm." "Controls. Doesn't own outright. Reeves Capital has stakes in 17 different hospitality properties across 6 states. The Grand Meridian is the flagship, but there are others. Smaller operations. Different markets." "Okay. What?" "About 8 months ago, my father started noticing irregularities in the books. Nothing huge. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. The kind of thing that could be accounting errors or sloppy management, but it was consistent, every property, every month." Ethan sipped his coffee. "So he launched an investigation." "No, he ignored it." Alexandra's jaw tightened. "My father is a brilliant businessman, but he's also pragmatic, He figured a little shrinkage was the cost of doing business. Better to keep the portfolio profitable than chase down nickels and create problems with property managers. But you didn't agree. I didn't, because I did the math, and those nickels added up to roughly $2.3 million over 18 months. That's not shrinkage. That's systematic theft. Dolores returned with Alexandra's eggs. She ate while she talked, efficient and focused, like someone who'd learned to multitask out of necessity rather than choice. So I started my own investigation, Alexandra continued. Quiet. Off the books. I visited properties unannounced, posed as a regular guest, talked to staff, and I found patterns. Security guards who weren't on the official payroll but showed up on camera footage, maintenance contracts that didn't match the work being done, guest complaints about harassment that were filed and then mysteriously disappeared. Protection rackets, Ethan said, among other things. The guards would target specific guests, wealthy ones usually, traveling alone. They'd find some pretext to corner them, make them uncomfortable, then suggest that for a small fee, they could ensure the guest's stay remained pleasant. Most people paid. The ones who didn't got their rooms tossed, their belongings stolen, sometimes worse. And hotel management? Either in on it or looking the other way. Hard to tell which. But the money was flowing somewhere, and it wasn't showing up in legitimate accounts. She pushed her eggs around her plate. Last night was supposed to be my chance to catch them in the act. I'd heard rumors about VIP area activities, so I went where I wasn't supposed to go and waited to see what happened. You used yourself as bait. It worked, didn't it? Until it didn't. If I hadn't been there, but you were. Alexandra met his eyes. And that's not luck. You were sitting in that lobby for over an hour. You noticed the cameras were disabled. You tracked the guards' movements. You knew something was wrong before I did. Ethan said nothing. So here's what I'm wondering, Alexandra continued. What's a man with your training doing working maintenance contracts? And don't tell me you were Army logistics. I pulled your public records. They're too clean. No gaps, no inconsistencies, no flag officers signing your discharge papers. It's a good cover, but it's still a cover. You've been busy. It's my job to notice things that don't add up. She leaned forward. And you, Ethan Cole, do not add up. But I'm not asking you to explain yourself. I'm asking you to help me finish what you started. I didn't start anything. You exposed them. Those guards would still be running their operation if you'd walked away. Now they're dead, which means someone's scared. Someone with resources and reach. And I need to figure out who before they clean up the rest of the evidence. That's a job for police. The police found 2 dead bodies in their own holding cells. You really think they're equipped to handle this? She had a point. Ethan finished his coffee. What exactly are you proposing? I need access to places I can't go alone. Security offices, staff areas. The kind of places where someone like you could blend in without raising suspicion. You want me to sneak around your own hotels? I want you to help me find evidence. Paper trails, digital records, anything that connects the dots between the guards and whoever's really running this operation. She paused. I'm offering to pay you, double whatever you make on your maintenance contracts, plus expenses. And when whoever killed those guards decides I'm too much of a risk, then you'll be glad you have someone with resources watching your back. Ethan laughed, but there was no humor in it. You don't know what you're asking. I know exactly what I'm asking. I'm asking you to do what you're trained for, what you're clearly still capable of. That's not who I am anymore, says the man who neutralized 2 armed guards in under 5 seconds. They stared at each other across the table. Somewhere in the kitchen, someone dropped a plate, the crash cutting through the diner's low murmur of conversation. Ethan thought about Lily, asleep on Mrs. Chen's couch, trusting that the world was safe because her father made it so. He thought about the man in the park, offering an escape that came with strings. He thought about 7 years of keeping his head down, avoiding attention, building a quiet life that maybe, just maybe, could have lasted. I have a daughter, he said quietly. That's my priority. Not justice. Not revenge. Not fixing other people's problems. Her. I know. And that's exactly why you should do this. How do you figure? Because right now, you're a loose end, and loose ends get tied up. But if you help me bring these people down, if you're part of the solution instead of just a witness, you become valuable, protected, the kind of person they can't touch without consequences. It was a decent argument. Ethan hated that it made sense.
I need to think about it, he said. How long? 24 hours. Alexandra nodded. Fair enough. But Ethan? Don't take too long. The people we're dealing with don't wait for permission. She stood, dropped 2 20s on the table, and walked out without looking back. Ethan sat there for another 10 minutes, nursing cold coffee and trying to convince himself there was a version of this where Lily stayed safe and he kept his hands clean. He couldn't find one. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Cole. The voice was male, older, with the kind of authority that came from decades of being obeyed. My name is Richard Chen. I'm the owner of the Grand Meridian. I believe we need to talk. Not related to the hotel manager he'd met last night, apparently. Different Chen. About what? About the incident you prevented. About the investigation that's now threatening my property's reputation. And about how we might resolve this situation in a way that benefits everyone. I already gave my statement to the police. I'm sure you did. But I'm not talking about the police. I'm talking about you and me, having a conversation about your future. Ethan's grip tightened on his phone. I'm not interested in conversations that start with veiled threats. No threats, Mr. Cole. Opportunities. You strike me as a man who understands the value of discretion. Someone who knows when to speak up and when to remain quiet. Is that what you're buying? My silence? I'm offering compensation for the distress you and your daughter experienced at my establishment. A generous compensation. Enough that you could afford to relocate somewhere quieter, somewhere safer. There it was, the carrot and the stick, wrapped in expensive words. How much? Ethan asked, not because he was interested, but because he wanted to know how desperate Chen was. $50,000. Cash. No strings attached. You simply sign a confidentiality agreement and move on with your life. $50,000 would change everything. New apartment, new city. Maybe even enough to disappear properly this time. And if I don't? Then I hope your maintenance business has good insurance. Chen's voice never changed tone, but the menace was clear. Accidents happen, Mr. Cole. Equipment fails. Contracts get canceled. It would be unfortunate if your daughter's school had concerns about her home environment. Ethan's vision went red at the edges. You threatening my kid? I'm pointing out realities. The world is dangerous for people who make powerful enemies. I'd hate to see you become one of those people. Here's a reality for you, Ethan said, keeping his voice level through pure force of will. I don't respond well to threats, especially ones involving my daughter. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to hang up. You're going to forget you made this call. And you're going to hope I'm feeling generous enough not to mention it to the police. Silence on the other end. Then Chen laughed. It was a cold sound. You're making a mistake. Wouldn't be my first. Chen hung up. Ethan sat there, hands shaking, coffee forgotten. 2 offers in one day, both trying to control him through different means, neither understanding that threats were the fastest way to make him dig in. He pulled out his phone and dialed Alexandra. She answered immediately. That was fast. I'm in. What changed? Someone just made it personal. I need everything you have on Richard Chen. Property records, business associates, financials, everything. Done. When can you start? Tonight. But we do this my way. No unnecessary risks, no exposure. And if anything threatens my daughter, I'm out. Agreed. I'll send you an address. Meet me there at 8. She hung up. Ethan paid for the coffee and walked out into the cold November afternoon. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that would have been beautiful if he'd been in the mood to notice. Instead, he was thinking about logistics, about how to investigate a criminal network while keeping a 7-year-old safe, about whether he just made the smartest decision of his life or the stupidest. His phone buzzed with a text. Not from Alexandra. From the number on the plain white card the man from the park had left. It read, "Offer still stands, but the window's closing." Ethan deleted it without responding. Back at his apartment, Lily was awake, sitting at the kitchen table with Mrs. Chen working on homework. She looked up when he entered, her face brightening.
Daddy, Mrs. Chen helped me with my math. That's great, kiddo. He smiled at Mrs. Chen. Thanks for watching her. Anytime, Mrs. Chen gathered her things.
She's a joy, though she did ask me about 15 times when you'd be back. I worry, Lily said matter-of-factly. You were gone a long time. After Mrs. Chen left, Ethan made them dinner. Spaghetti from a jar, garlic bread from the freezer, the kind of meal that required minimal effort and maximum carbohydrates. Lily chattered about her day while he half listened, his mind already running through tonight's plan. He'd need to drop Lily at Mrs. Chen's again.
Make up some excuse about a late contract. Hope she didn't ask too many questions. After dinner, Lily wanted to watch a movie. They settled on something animated with talking animals and a message about believing in yourself. Ethan sat beside her on the couch, her head resting against his arm, and tried to absorb the simple peace of the moment. This was why he did everything. This right here, a kid who felt safe enough to fall asleep during a movie, trusting that the world made sense, and her father would protect her from anything that didn't. At 7:30, he carried her to Mrs. Chen's apartment. Emergency contract, he explained. Hotel downtown needs something fixed tonight, or they'll breach their own agreements. Should only be a few hours. Mrs. Chen looked skeptical but didn't argue. She can sleep here if you're late. Thanks. I owe you. You owe me nothing. Just be careful. Ethan drove to the address Alexandra had sent. It was an office building in the financial district, mostly dark, except for a few lit windows on the upper floors. He parked in a visitor spot and texted Alexandra that he'd arrived. She met him in the lobby, waving him past security with a badge that marked her as someone important enough not to question. They took an elevator to the 14th floor. The doors opened into a space that was part office, part war room. Desks covered in papers, whiteboards filled with names and dates and connection diagrams, and enough computer monitors to run a small television station. Welcome to the Nerve Center, Alexandra said. I've been working out of here since I started the investigation. My father doesn't know it exists. Ethan walked to one of the whiteboards. It showed the 17 properties in the Reeves Capital portfolio, each with notes in different colored markers. Red meant confirmed criminal activity. Yellow meant suspected. Only 3 properties were unmarked. This is bigger than I thought, he said. It's been going on for at least 2 years, maybe longer. We're talking millions in stolen money, hundreds of victims, and a network that spans multiple states. She pulled up a chair. The guards you encountered were low level, muscle. The real question is who's organizing them, who's collecting the money, and who has enough juice to kill 2 men in police custody. You have suspects? A few. Richard Chen, obviously. He's got motive and opportunity, but he's also too visible. This operation requires someone who can move in shadows. Show me what you've got. Alexandra spent the next hour walking him through everything she'd compiled. Financial records that showed suspicious cash movements, security footage from multiple properties showing the same faces appearing in different cities, incident reports that followed identical patterns. It was thorough, meticulous work, but it was also incomplete. She had pieces of the puzzle, but couldn't see the whole picture. I need inside access, she said. The security offices keep their real records off the network. Paper files, encrypted drives, stuff they don't want audited. That's where we'll find the connections. And you want me to get them. You blend in, former military, working maintenance. You can access restricted areas without raising flags. When? Tomorrow night. The Grand Meridian hosts a gala every month. During events, security's focused on the guests. Offices are understaffed. It's our best window. Ethan studied the whiteboard, tracking the connections, the patterns, the way everything pointed towards something larger than a simple protection racket. This isn't just about money, he said. What do you mean? Money's part of it, but this level of organization, the coordination across multiple states, the ability to kill witnesses in custody, that takes infrastructure, resources, the kind of backing that comes from somewhere bigger. Alexandra frowned. You think this is connected to something else? I think it's a front. The protection rackets, the skimming, that's all small time compared to what the network could be used for. You want to move money without raising flags? You run it through legitimate businesses. Hotels are perfect. Cash heavy, high turnover, easy to manipulate books. Money laundering. Or worse. Alexandra was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled up a file on one of the computers.
3 months ago, there was an incident at our Seattle property. A guest reported seeing someone being held against their will in a service corridor. By the time security responded, there was no one there. The guest was written off as confused. You think it was trafficking? I think it's possible.
And if I'm right, then what you exposed last night wasn't just corruption, it was a piece of something that destroys lives. Ethan felt the weight of it settling on his shoulders. This was exactly the kind of thing he'd walked away from. The complicated, dangerous operations that required skills he'd buried and instincts he'd tried to forget. But it was also the kind of thing he couldn't ignore now that he knew about it. "I'll do it," he said. "Tomorrow night. But I need you to do something for me." "Name it. If this goes sideways, if something happens to me, you make sure my daughter's taken care of. Not money, actual care. Someone who will look after her, keep her safe, make sure she has a life." Alexandra met his eyes. "Nothing's going to happen to you." "Promise anyway." "I promise." Ethan nodded and checked his watch. Almost 10. He needed to get back to Lily. As he headed for the elevator, Alexandra called after him. "Ethan, thank you for doing this. Thank me when it's over." The drive home was quiet, the city lights blurring past as Ethan's mind raced through scenarios and contingencies. He'd been out of the field for 7 years. His reflexes were rusty, his edge dulled by domestic life and deliberate forgetting. But muscle memory was a powerful thing, and some skills, once learned, never fully disappeared. He just hoped he remembered enough to not get killed. Mrs. Chen's apartment was dark except for a lamp in the living room. Ethan knocked softly, and she appeared a moment later, finger to her lips. "She's asleep on the couch," Mrs. Chen whispered. "Tried to wait up for you but couldn't make it. Sorry I'm late." "Don't be." Mrs. Chen studied his face with the kind of perception that came from decades of reading children and adults alike. "Whatever you're doing, Ethan, be careful. That girl needs her father." "I know." He carried Lily back to their apartment, tucking her into her bed without waking her. Her paper cranes were lined up on the nightstand, a silent army of folded hope. Ethan sat on the edge of her bed for a long time, watching her sleep, trying to memorize this moment of peace before everything got complicated. Tomorrow night, he'd step back into a world he'd sworn to leave behind. He'd use skills that came with memories he'd tried to bury. He'd risk everything on the chance that maybe, just maybe, he could help stop something terrible and walk away clean. But sitting there in the dark, watching his daughter breathe, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that some doors, once opened, could never be closed again. And he just kicked this one wide open. Morning came too early. Lily was up at 6, singing something off-key in the kitchen, and Ethan dragged himself out of bed feeling like he'd been run over by something heavy and indifferent. He'd slept maybe 3 hours, his mind cycling through blueprints Alexandra had shown him, security rotations, exit strategies, all the planning that used to be second nature but now felt like reading a language he'd half forgotten. He found Lily making cereal, milk pooled around the bowl because she'd poured with more enthusiasm than accuracy. "Morning, kiddo." "You look tired," she said, not looking up from her careful construction of the perfect cereal-to-milk ratio. "Didn't sleep great. Bad dreams again?" "Something like that." She abandoned her cereal project and came over, wrapping her arms around his waist in a hug that was all fierce 7-year-old determination. "The cranes will keep you safe. I made 6 more last night." Ethan looked at the kitchen counter. Sure enough, 6 new paper cranes sat in a neat row, slightly lopsided but made with obvious care. "You're supposed to be sleeping at night, not making origami." "I couldn't sleep either, so I made you extra protection." He squeezed her shoulder, throat tight. "Thank you, sweetheart." They ate breakfast in companionable silence, and then it was the usual Sunday morning scramble, getting Lily dressed, hunting for her other shoe, packing snacks for the day. Mrs. Chen had invited Lily to spend the afternoon with her granddaughter, who was visiting from Portland, which solved Ethan's babysitting problem for tonight, but also made him feel like the world's worst father for being relieved. After dropping Lily next door with promises to pick her up by dinner time, Ethan spent the day preparing. He went to a sporting goods store and bought black tactical pants and a dark shirt that could pass for maintenance worker attire. He stopped by a hardware store for a multi-tool and a small flashlight. Nothing that would raise eyebrows individually, but together they formed a kit he hoped he wouldn't need. His phone buzzed around too. "Alexandra." Security shift change is at 9 p.m. Gala runs until 11. Window is 9:15 to 10:30. Meet me at the service entrance at 9. He texted back a thumbs up and immediately regretted using an emoji. When had he become the kind of person who responded to covert operations with cartoon hands? At 7, he picked up Lily from Mrs. Chen's. She was hyper from an afternoon of sugar and playing, talking a mile a minute about everything she and Mrs. Chen's granddaughter had done. And then we built a fort out of blankets and pretended we were explorers and there were dragons and... Sounds like you had fun, Ethan said, steering her toward their apartment. The best. Can I have a sleepover sometime? Mrs. Chen said I could ask. Maybe. We'll see. That means no. It means we'll see. Lily gave him a look that was far too knowing for her age, but let it drop. She was tired, he could tell, her energy starting to flag. Good. It would make the evening easier if she went to bed early. They had mac and cheese from a box for dinner because Ethan's mind was elsewhere, and cooking felt like a task designed for someone with more focus. Lily didn't complain. She liked the box stuff better anyway, something about the artificial cheese powder being more orange. At 8, he got her ready for bed even though it was earlier than usual. I'm not tired, she protested, even as she yawned. Just rest then. You don't have to sleep. Where are you going? The question stopped him. What makes you think I'm going somewhere? You keep looking at your phone, and you're wearing your work clothes even though it's nighttime. Too observant, just like her mother. I have to check on something at the hotel, the one from the other night, just making sure everything's fixed properly. Can't you go tomorrow? They need it done tonight. Lily's face scrunched up in that way that meant she was deciding whether to argue or accept. Will you be gone long? Few hours. Mrs. Chen's right next door if you need anything. I know. She climbed into bed, pulling her covers up. Be careful, okay? Always am. No, I mean really careful. The bad men are gone, but... She trailed off, searching for words. It still feels like something bad could happen. Ethan sat on the edge of her bed. Nothing bad's going to happen, I promise. You can't promise that. Nobody can. She was right, and it scared him how much she understood about the world's fundamental unreliability. He wanted to protect her from that knowledge, but she'd already lost her mother. She knew promises were just words. You're right, he said quietly. I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen, but I can promise I'll do everything I can to come home safe. Deal? She considered this. Deal, but take the cranes. I've got them. He pulled one from his pocket, showing her. Right here. That seemed to satisfy her. She closed her eyes, and within minutes her breathing had evened out into sleep. Ethan watched her for another moment, committing the scene to memory. Her dark hair spread across the pillow, one hand curled beneath her chin, the paper crane standing guard on her nightstand. Then he stood, checked that his phone was on silent, and headed out. The drive to the Grand Meridian took 20 minutes through light Sunday evening traffic. The hotel blazed with light, valets in red jackets swarming around expensive cars, guests in evening wear flowing through the main entrance. Ethan drove past all of it, circling to the service entrance on the building's east side. Alexandra was waiting in the shadows near a loading dock, dressed in black pants and a dark jacket, her hair hidden under a baseball cap. She looked different like this. Sharper, more focused, less like an heiress, and more like someone who knew how to operate in the dark. You're early, she said. So are you. Couldn't sleep last night, kept running scenarios. Yeah, me too. She handed him a badge clipped to a lanyard. This'll get you into service areas. It's registered to a contractor who quit 3 months ago but hasn't been purged from the system yet. You're James Morrison, HVAC specialist, here to check the climate control in the executive offices. Ethan clipped it to his belt. HVAC. Sure, I definitely know about that. You don't have to know anything. If someone asks, just say you're checking temperature sensors. Most people's eyes glaze over the second you mention technical specs. What about you? I'm going in through the main entrance, attending the gala. If anyone asks why I'm here, I'm surprising my father with a visit. Once I'm in, I'll create a distraction around 9:45, something that pulls security toward the ballroom. That's your window to access the head of security's office on the 3rd floor. What kind of distraction? Alexandra smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. The messy kind. You'll know it when you hear it. She led him through the service entrance, past a bored security guard who barely glanced at their badges, into a concrete corridor that smelled like cleaning supplies and old grease. This was the hotel's skeleton, the bones beneath the pretty skin, and it was a world Ethan understood better than the marble lobbies upstairs. They split up at a stairwell. Alexandra headed up toward the main floors, while Ethan descended further into the building's guts, following the mental map he'd memorized from the blueprints. Basement level held the real mechanical rooms, the places where contractors actually worked. If anyone questioned him, being down here made sense. He killed 15 minutes checking his phone, reviewing the plan, trying to calm the nervous energy that felt too much like anticipation. At 9:20, he moved. The stairwell was empty. He climbed to the third floor, moving with purpose but not urgency, just another contractor doing a job. The hallway was carpeted here, soft underfoot, with artwork on the walls and that specific hotel smell of industrial carpet cleaner and recycled air. Security office was at the end of the hall, marked with a plain door and a key card reader. Ethan pulled out the badge Alexandra had given him, hesitated for half a second, then swiped it. The light blinked red. His stomach dropped. She'd said this would work. He tried again. Red. Footsteps echoed from around the corner. Someone was coming. Ethan's hand went to the multi-tool in his pocket, his mind already calculating whether he could pick the lock before whoever was approaching rounded the corner. But then a woman's voice called out, "Hey, you need help?" He turned. A housekeeper, maybe mid-50s, pushing a cart loaded with towels. "Lock's not reading my card," Ethan said, keeping his voice casual, trying to access climate control panel in the security office. "Those readers are garbage. Half the time they don't work." She pulled out her own card, a master key that housekeeping carried. "Here." She swiped it. The light blinked green. "Thanks," Ethan said. "No problem. You want me to prop it open? Save you the trouble when you come out?" "I'm good, but thanks." She nodded and continued down the hall with her cart, already forgetting about him. Ethan slipped inside and closed the door. The security office was smaller than he'd expected, barely 10 by 12 feet, with one wall completely covered in monitors showing various camera feeds. A desk dominated the remaining space, buried under papers and coffee cups, and the general detritus of people who worked long shifts in small rooms. He went to the filing cabinet first. Locked, but it was a cheap lock, the kind that came standard with office furniture. The multi-tool had a small pry bar that fit perfectly, and with the right amount of pressure, the drawer popped open. Inside were personnel files. He flipped through them, looking for anything connected to Davidson or Torres. Found them in a folder marked Terminated, Pending. Both had been hired 8 months ago through a private security contractor called Sentinel Risk Management. Same company had placed guards at 4 other Reeves properties. Ethan pulled out his phone and photographed everything. The contracts, the contact information, the names of other guards hired through Sentinel. The desk was next. He rifled through drawers, finding schedules, incident reports, and buried in the bottom drawer beneath a stack of magazines, a flash drive labeled Backup, External Only. He pocketed it. A monitor on the wall flickered, drawing his attention. One of the cameras showed the grand ballroom where the gala was in full swing. Alexandra was visible in the crowd, wearing a stunning red dress that definitely hadn't been part of her earlier outfit. She must have changed somewhere. She was talking to an older man in a tuxedo who bore enough resemblance to be her father. Then she did something that made the man's face go red. Threw her drink at him, maybe, or said something that hit like a slap. People turned. Security started moving toward the commotion. The distraction. Ethan worked faster, checking the computer. It was password protected, but there was a sticky note on the monitor with what looked like a password written in faded ink. He tried it. The screen unlocked. Jackpot. The desktop had folders labeled by month. He opened the most recent one and found spreadsheets tracking cash deposits, guard schedules, and what looked like coded references to incidents. Next to each incident was a dollar amount, payments. This was the actual accounting for the protection racket. He plugged in the flash drive Alexandra had given him and started copying files. The progress bar crawled across the screen at an agonizing pace. 40%. 50. The door handle turned. Ethan's hand went to the flash drive, ready to yank it, but the door didn't open. Someone was struggling with the lock on the other side, muttering about the damn keycard readers. 70%. The voice outside got louder. A radio crackled. Someone responding to the distraction in the ballroom. 85%. The door opened. A security guard stepped in, looking down at his radio, not at Ethan. Yeah, I'm checking the... He looked up. For a frozen second, they stared at each other. The guard was young, early 20s, with the kind of face that suggested this was his first real job, and he took it very seriously. His hand dropped toward the baton on his belt. Who the hell are you? HVAC, Ethan said, keeping his voice level. Checking the climate control. In the security office? Temperature sensors connected to your system. I'm just pulling diagnostics. The guard's eyes went to the computer screen where the progress bar was at 94%. That's not diagnostics, that's file transfer. Ethan's mind ran through his options. He could try to talk his way out, but this kid wasn't stupid. He could run, but that would confirm guilt and trigger a building-wide response. Or he could do what he'd spent 7 years trying not to do. The guard reached for his radio. Ethan moved. 3 steps closed the distance. His hand caught the guard's wrist before the radio cleared his belt, applying just enough pressure to make the kid freeze. Not pain exactly, just the promise of it. Don't, Ethan said quietly. You're going to be in so much trouble. Listen to me very carefully. You're going to let me finish what I'm doing. Then you're going to forget you saw me. And tomorrow when people ask why you didn't report this, you're going to say you checked this office and found nothing unusual. I can't. Ethan increased the pressure on the kid's wrist, just a fraction. You can, and you will, because the alternative is you getting dragged into something that's way above your pay grade. You're what, 22, 23? First security job? The kid nodded, eyes wide. Then trust me when I say you don't want to be the person who interfered with a federal investigation. Federal? Did I stutter? The progress bar hit 100%. Ethan released the kid's wrist and removed the flash drive, pocketing it in one smooth motion. What investigation? The guard asked, rubbing his wrist. The kind you don't ask questions about. Now are we going to have a problem? The kid looked at Ethan, at the computer, at the door. The calculation was visible on his face. Report this and get tangled up in something messy, or look the other way and keep his simple job simple. No, he said finally. No problem. Good. What's your name? Kevin. Okay, Kevin, I was never here. You checked this office at 9:40 and found everything normal. Can you remember that? Kevin nodded. Say it. I checked the office at 9:40. Everything was normal. Good man. Ethan headed for the door, then paused. And Kevin, get a better job. This place is going to be radioactive soon. He left before the kid could respond. The hallway was still empty. Ethan walked toward the stairwell, forcing himself to maintain a normal pace even as his pulse hammered. That had been too close. And lying to the kid about a federal investigation felt dirty, but it was better than the alternative. He took the stairs down 2 at a time, emerging into the service corridor just as his phone buzzed. Alexandra. Where are you? Ethan. Out. Got what we needed. Alexandra. Meet at the car. He ditched the badge in a trash bin on his way to the exit, then slipped out the service door into the cold night air. His truck was parked 3 blocks away, but Alexandra's car, a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than his annual income, was idling in the service lot. She waved him over. He climbed into the passenger seat and she pulled out before he'd even closed the door. How'd it go? She asked, eyes on the road. Got files. Flash drive from the security office, photos of personnel records. It's all connected to a company called Sentinel Risk Management. I know Sentinel. They're a private military contractor, mostly overseas work. What are they doing running hotel security? That's the question, isn't it? Alexandra turned onto the main road, accelerating smoothly. My distraction went well, in case you were wondering. I saw. You threw a drink at your father? Champagne. Vintage. He was furious. She smiled. Worth it, though. Security was so focused on containing the situation that half the building went unwatched for 10 minutes. A guard walked in on me. Her smile vanished. What happened? I handled it. He's not going to talk. You didn't? No, I just convinced him that reporting me would be more trouble than it's worth. And he believed you? Seemed to. Alexandra was quiet for a moment. That was risky. The whole thing was risky. Fair point.
She pulled into a parking garage, descending several levels before finding a spot in a corner far from the cameras. Let's see what we got. They spent the next hour in the car, going through the files on Ethan's phone and the contents of the flash drive on Alexandra's laptop. What emerged was a picture of systematic corruption that went beyond simple theft. Sentinel Risk Management had placed guards at 17 properties across 6 states. Those guards had generated over $3 million in protection payments over 18 months. But the money wasn't staying with Sentinel. It was being funneled through a series of shell companies, eventually landing in accounts tied to a real estate development firm called Meridian Holdings. Meridian Holdings, Alexandra said, typing furiously. Oh hell. What? That's Richard Chen's company, not the hotel company, his personal real estate firm. So Chen's running the whole operation. Looks like it, but there's something else. She pulled up another file. These dates, the pattern of payments, it matches up with property acquisitions. Chen's been using the stolen money to buy distressed properties. Hotels mostly. Small chains that are struggling. He buys them cheap, absorbs them into the Reeves portfolio, then uses them to expand the protection network. It's a feedback loop. Steal money, buy hotels, use those hotels to steal more money. And my father has no idea. He thinks Chen's just a savvy investor finding good deals. Alexandra's jaw tightened. We need to take this to the police. Will they act on it? With this much evidence, they'll have to. Ethan wasn't so sure. Rich people had a way of insulating themselves from consequences. But it was worth trying. They drove to the police station, the same one where Ethan had given his statement. Officer Sandoval was still on duty, looking like she'd been mainlining coffee for the past 12 hours. Mr. Cole, she said when she saw him, what brings you back? Evidence, Alexandra said, stepping forward. We have evidence of a criminal conspiracy involving the Grand Meridian and 16 other properties. Sandoval's eyebrows rose. That's a bold claim. We can prove it. They spent the next 2 hours laying out everything. The files, the photos, the money trail. Sandoval listened, taking notes, her expression getting grimmer with each revelation. When they finished, she sat back and rubbed her eyes. This is extensive. Can you act on it? Alexandra asked. I can start the process, but Mr. Cole, this involves multiple jurisdictions, federal money laundering statutes, and some very connected people. It's going to take time. How much time? Weeks, maybe months. We'll need warrants, need to coordinate with other departments, need to build an airtight case. These people killed 2 men in your custody, Ethan said. How long before they kill someone else? I understand your concern. But if we move too fast, if we spook them before we have everything locked down, they'll scatter. Evidence will disappear. We'll lose them. It made sense, but it also meant living with a target on his back while bureaucracy ground forward at its usual glacial pace. What about protection? Ethan asked. For my daughter. Sandoval looked uncomfortable. I can't assign protective detail based on potential threat. If you receive a specific threat, call us immediately. But otherwise, we're on our own. I'm sorry. They left the station as the first light of dawn started bleeding into the sky. Ethan checked his phone. 5:30. Lily would be awake in an hour. I need to get home, he said. Alexandra drove him back to his truck. As he was getting out, she grabbed his arm. Thank you, she said, for tonight, for taking the risk. Thank the kid if this actually goes anywhere. I will. But I meant what I said before, about protecting your daughter. If anything happens, nothing's going to happen. You don't know that. He didn't, but he couldn't afford to think about the alternative. Ethan drove home through empty streets, his mind replaying the night's events. The security office, the guard, the files. All of it felt surreal, like he'd slipped into someone else's life for a few hours. Back at the apartment, he checked on Lily. Still asleep, paper cranes standing guard. He grabbed a quick shower, changed into clean clothes, and started making breakfast. By the time Lily woke up, there were pancakes on the table and orange juice in her favorite cup, and he was sitting there with the newspaper like this was any other Monday morning. You came home, she said, appearing in her pajamas, hair a mess. Course I did. How was the hotel? Fixed everything, no problems. She studied him with those two knowing eyes. You look tired still. I am tired, but I'm here. That seemed to satisfy her. She climbed into her chair and attacked the pancakes with enthusiasm. Ethan's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Cole. The voice was distorted, run through some kind of filter. You've made a serious mistake. Every muscle in his body went tight. Who is this? Someone who knows what you did last night. Someone who knows you have files that don't belong to you.
I don't know what you're talking about. The security office, the flash drive, don't insult my intelligence. Lily was watching him now, pancake forgotten. What do you want? Ethan asked, keeping his voice level. Meet me. Alone. Today at noon, Jefferson Park. The bench where we had our last conversation. The man from the park. Had to be. And if I don't? Then I can't guarantee your daughter's safety. Schools are such vulnerable places, aren't they? The line went dead. Ethan set down his phone with a hand that wanted to shake. Lily was still watching him. Wrong number, he said. She didn't look convinced. Ethan got Lily to school by 8:15, watching her disappear through the double doors with her backpack bouncing and her paper crane clutched in one hand. She'd insisted on bringing it for show and tell, explaining to him very seriously that her classmates needed to learn about Japanese traditions and also about keeping people safe. He waited until she was completely out of sight before calling Alexandra. She picked up on the second ring. What's wrong? They called, threatened Lily, want to meet at noon. Who called? The guy from the park, the one who knows about Raven Unit. Silence on the other end. Then, you're not going alone. He said alone. I don't care what he said. This is a setup. Probably. But if there's even a chance he knows something about who's really running this operation, then we get it another way. Ethan, these people killed 2 men in police custody. You think they'll hesitate to kill you in broad daylight? She had a point, but the alternative was doing nothing while someone who knew about his daughter circled closer. I'm going, he said, but I need you to do something. Get Lily from school at 2:30. Take her somewhere safe. Somewhere these people can't find her. Where? I don't know. Your father's house? A hotel? Just somewhere that's not here. Ethan, please. If this goes sideways, if I don't come back, she needs someone. Alexandra was quiet for a long moment. This is a terrible plan. It's the only plan I've got. Fine. But I'm calling Sandoval, getting police there. No, you bring cops, whoever this guy is will disappear, and then we'll never know who we're really dealing with. So you're just going to walk into a trap? I'm going to get answers. There's a difference. He hung up before she could argue further. The next 3 hours crawled past. Ethan tried to work on invoices, balance his checkbook, do any of the normal Monday morning tasks that usually filled his time, but his mind kept circling back to the meeting, running scenarios, calculating risks, remembering skills he'd promised himself he'd never use again. At 11:30, he drove to Jefferson Park. The playground was empty on a Monday morning, the swings moving slightly in the cold November wind. Ethan chose the same bench as before, sitting on the far end with a clear view of all approaches. His phone was in his pocket, recording. Not that it would matter if things went bad, but at least there'd be evidence. The man arrived exactly at noon, appearing from the tree line like he'd been waiting just out of sight. Same expensive overcoat, same leather gloves, same newspaper tucked under his arm. He sat at the opposite end of the bench. Mr. Cole, thank you for coming. You threatened my daughter, didn't leave me much choice. Threats are such ugly things. I prefer to think of it as clarifying the stakes. The man set his newspaper between them. You've been busy, breaking into security offices, stealing files, playing detective with the Reeves girl. How do you know about that? Because I make it my business to know. The question is, what are you planning to do with what you found? Turn it over to the police. Let them handle it. The man smiled. The police? Yes. Officer Sandoval, wasn't it? Very dedicated, also very outmatched. She's investigating a conspiracy that reaches far beyond hotel security guards and protection rackets. Then why don't you tell me what it really is? Meridian Holdings is a front for a money laundering operation that processes approximately $40 million annually. The hotels are just one component. There are also nightclubs, restaurants, car dealerships, even a few casinos, all legitimate businesses on paper, all running dirty money underneath. Ethan's stomach dropped. 40 million. This was so much bigger than he'd thought. And Richard Chen? Chen is middle management. He runs the hotel operations, skims his percentage, keeps things running smoothly, but he doesn't control the network. He answers to someone else. Who? The man pulled a photograph from his newspaper and placed it face down on the bench between them. Before I show you this, I need something from you. I'm not trading information about Raven Unit. I'm not asking you to. That offer expired when you chose to involve yourself in this investigation. The man leaned back. What I need is assurance that when this is over, you'll walk away. No heroics, no crusades, no attempts to dismantle the entire network. You give the police enough to take down the hotel operation, and you stop there. Why would I agree to that? Because the person who actually runs this network has the resources to disappear you and your daughter so completely that no one will ever find the bodies. But if you stay in your lane, if you settle for the small victory, they'll consider you a minor inconvenience and move on. Ethan stared at the face-down photograph. And if I don't agree, then I walk away with this information and you face whatever's coming with incomplete intelligence. Your choice. It was a devil's bargain. Take down part of the operation and let the rest continue, or push for everything and risk losing Lily in the process. How do I know you're telling the truth? You don't, but you know I recognized your unit tattoo. You know I have access to information that shouldn't exist. And you know that if I wanted you dead, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The wind picked up, rattling the swings, carrying the smell of dead leaves and winter coming. Fine, Ethan said. I agree. Show me. The man flipped over the photograph. It showed Marcus Reeves, Alexandra's father, shaking hands with a man Ethan didn't recognize. They were standing in front of what looked like a construction site, both smiling for the camera. I don't understand. Marcus Reeves isn't just an investor in these properties. He's the architect of the entire laundering scheme, has been for 7 years. His daughter's investigation? He's known about it from the beginning. He's been feeding her just enough truth to make her feel like she's uncovering something while carefully controlling what she actually finds. Ethan felt like he'd been punched. Alexandra's been working against her own father this whole time. Without knowing it, yes, Reeves is very good at compartmentalization. His daughter sees him as a legitimate businessman. His partners see him as a reliable conduit for moving money, and the authorities see him as a pillar of the community. Only a handful of people know the truth, and you're one of them. I represent certain interests that occasionally overlap with Reeves's operations. We're not partners exactly, more like neighboring landlords who share a fence. Intelligence community. The man's smile was thin. Let's just say I work for people who prefer to remain anonymous. Ethan picked up the photograph. Alexandra was going to be destroyed when she learned the truth. She'd been trying to save her father's business, not realizing he was the one corrupting it. Why are you telling me this? Because Reeves is becoming sloppy. The deaths of those guards were his decision, an overreaction that drew unnecessary attention. My employers would prefer a quieter resolution. You give the police enough to dismantle the hotel operation and implicate Chen. Reeves loses those assets, learns his lesson, and continues his other business ventures more carefully. Everyone wins, except the people he's been victimizing. This is the real world, Mr. Cole. Sometimes you settle for harm reduction instead of justice. Ethan wanted to argue, but he'd seen enough of the real world to know the man was right. Perfect victories were fairy tales. You took what you could get and hoped it was enough. What about Raven Unit? He asked. Why do you care about that? I don't, but others do. The Kandahar incident left questions that certain people want answered. You're the last surviving member who wasn't debriefed. That makes you valuable. The man stood. The offer stands. Information about what really happened that night, in exchange for a clean start somewhere safe. I already have a life. Do you? Or do you have a temporary arrangement that's about to collapse? He buttoned his overcoat. Think about it. My number's still good for another 48 hours. He walked away without looking back, disappearing into the trees the same way he'd come. Ethan sat there with the photograph in his hand, trying to process everything. Marcus Reeves was the real target. Not Chen, not Sentinel Risk Management, the man who'd built a fortune on legitimate business while running criminal operations underneath. and Alexandra had no idea. His phone rang. Alexandra. Where are you? She asked. Still at the park, meeting's over. Are you okay? Yeah, but we need to talk. In person. Come to the office, the one I showed you before. I'll be there in 30 minutes. He hung up and looked at the photograph one more time. Marcus Reeves's smile was genuine in the picture. The smile of a man who'd figured out how to win at a game most people didn't know they were playing. Ethan pocketed the photo and headed to his truck. The drive gave him time to figure out how to tell Alexandra that her father was the enemy. There was no good way to deliver that information. No gentle approach. Just the truth, blunt and devastating. Alexandra was waiting when he arrived, pacing the office like a caged animal. What happened? What did he say? Sit down. I don't want to sit down. I want to know. Alexandra, sit, please. Something in his tone made her stop. She sat. Ethan pulled out the photograph and placed it on the desk in front of her. Do you know this man? The one your father's shaking hands with? She picked it up, studied it. That's Robert Vance. He's a property developer. My father's worked with him on several acquisitions. Vance is also connected to Meridian Holdings, and Meridian Holdings is connected to the money laundering operation. Okay, so my father did business with someone who turned out to be dirty. That doesn't mean your father isn't a victim. He's the architect. The words hit her like a physical blow. She actually flinched. That's not possible. The man I met with today has intelligence connections. He showed me documentation proving your father's been running the laundering operation for 7 years. Chen's just middle management. Your father is the one calling the shots. No, you're wrong. My father wouldn't. Alexandra, think about it. You've been investigating for 6 months and somehow never found anything that directly implicated him. Don't you think that's convenient? He's been controlling what you see, feeding you enough to keep you busy while protecting himself. She was shaking her head, but Ethan could see the doubt creeping in, the pieces clicking together in a way she didn't want to accept. The guards who died, Ethan continued, that was your father's decision. He ordered the hit because they could identify him as being involved. Stop. I know this is hard. I said stop. She stood abruptly, knocking the chair back. Yeah, you're telling me my father is a criminal, that everything I've been working for is a lie, that he's been manipulating me this entire time. Do you understand what that means? I do, and I'm sorry, but it's the truth. Alexandra turned away, arms wrapped around herself. What did this man want? Your contact? He wants us to take down the hotel operation, give the police enough evidence to arrest Chen and dismantle that piece of the network, but leave your father alone. Why? Because your father has connections that make him useful to certain interests. They'd prefer he learn from this mistake and continue operating more carefully. So I'm supposed to just let it go? Pretend I don't know my father's a criminal? You're supposed to decide what kind of justice you can live with. Partial victory that keeps you and everyone around you safe, or pushing for everything and risking total destruction. She was crying now, silent tears running down her face. This isn't fair. No, it's not. I trusted him. I thought I was helping him. I know. She wiped her eyes roughly, trying to pull herself together. What are you going to do? I'm going to give Sandoval enough to arrest Chen and shut down the hotel operations. Then I'm going to take my daughter and disappear for a while until this blows over. My father just walks away? Unless you want to fight a battle you can't win against someone with unlimited resources and no conscience. Yeah. He walks away. Alexandra sank back into the chair, looking lost. I don't know if I can do that. Then don't. But understand the consequences. Your father won't go down quietly. He'll destroy anyone who threatens him, including you. He's my father. He's a criminal who happens to be related to you. There's a difference. She looked at the photograph again, her father's smiling face mocking her from the glossy paper. I need time to think. You've got 24 hours. After that, I'm taking what we have to Sandoval regardless, with or without your help. That's not enough time. It's what we've got. Ethan left her there, staring at the photograph, the weight of truth crushing whatever illusion she'd been carrying. Back in his truck, he sat for a long moment before starting the engine. His phone showed 2 missed calls from Mrs. Chen and a text. Lily's school called. She's feeling sick. I picked her up. She's with me. His stomach dropped. Lily never got sick at school. She was too stubborn to admit weakness. He called Mrs. Chen. Is she okay? She says her stomach hurts, but Ethan, I think she's just scared. She keeps asking when you're coming home. I'm on my way. He drove faster than he should have, running yellow lights, his mind conjuring worst-case scenarios. By the time he reached the apartment building, he was convinced something terrible had happened. Mrs. Chen met him at her door. She's on the couch, been very quiet. Lily was curled up under a blanket, her face pale, paper cranes scattered on the coffee table beside her. Hey kiddo, Mrs. Chen says you're not feeling good. She looked at him with red-rimmed eyes. My stomach hurts. He sat beside her, feeling her forehead. No fever. Where does it hurt? Everywhere. Her voice was small.
I'm scared, Daddy. Scared of what? That something bad is going to happen. That you're going to leave like Mommy did. And there it was. The real sickness. Not physical, but existential. The terror that came from already losing one parent and knowing the second could disappear just as easily. Ethan pulled her into his lap, holding her tight. I'm not going anywhere, I promise. You said you couldn't promise that. You're right.
I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen. But I can promise I'm doing everything possible to stay safe, to come home to you, every single day. But what if it's not enough? He didn't have an answer for that, because sometimes it wasn't enough. Sometimes you did everything right and still lost. Then we deal with it together, he said finally. Whatever happens, we face it together. Deal? She nodded against his chest. Mrs. Chen made them lunch. Soup and grilled cheese, comfort food that tasted like someone cared. Lily ate slowly, her color returning, the fear gradually receding behind her careful 7-year-old composure. After lunch, Ethan carried her back to their apartment and tucked her into bed. Can you stay? She asked. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere today. He lay down beside her, and she curled up against him, one hand clutching a paper crane. Daddy? Yeah? If something bad does happen, will you tell me, instead of pretending everything's okay? The question gutted him. She was asking for honesty in a world that had already taught her adults lied to protect children's feelings. Yeah, he said. I'll tell you. Promise? Promise. She fell asleep like that, using his arm as a pillow, trusting him to keep that promise, even though they both knew promises were just words. Ethan lay there watching her sleep, and he made a decision. He was done running, done hiding, done letting other people control his life with threats and leverage and carefully constructed fear. Marcus Reeves thought he was untouchable. The man from the park thought Ethan would take the safe option and walk away. They were both wrong. At 4 o'clock, after Lily woke up and seemed genuinely better, Ethan called Alexandra. I'm going to the police, he said, with everything. Your father included. Ethan, wait. I'm done waiting. These people threatened my daughter. Your father ordered the murder of 2 men. This ends now. It'll destroy my family. Your family's already destroyed. You just haven't admitted it yet. Silence. Then, you're right. What do you need from me? Everything you've got on your father, financial records, communications, anything that proves his involvement. I don't have much. He's careful. Then we use what we have and let the investigation find the rest. Okay? Her voice was steady now, resolved. When? Tonight. We take it to Sandoval tonight. I'll meet you at the station at 7. After hanging up, Ethan called Sandoval directly. Mr. Cole, I wasn't expecting to hear from you. I have more information, significantly more. Can you meet me at 7? What kind of information? The kind that's going to require federal involvement and probably witness protection. A pause. I'll make some calls. At 6:30, Ethan dropped Lily at Mrs. Chen's with a packed bag. How long will I be gone? Lily asked. Maybe a few days, just until some work stuff gets sorted out. The bad stuff? He knelt down to her level. Yeah, the bad stuff. But it's going to be okay. She hugged him fiercely. You promised to tell me if it wasn't okay. And I will. But right now, it's okay. Just complicated. Mrs. Chen took Lily's hand. We'll have a nice time. Maybe make cookies. As Ethan walked away, he heard Lily ask Mrs. Chen, Do you know how to make paper cranes?
The police station was busy for a Monday evening. Ethan found Alexandra waiting in the lobby, a leather bag slung over her shoulder, her face showing the strain of the past 24 hours. "You came," he said. "I came. Though I still think this is going to explode in our faces." "Probably, but at least we'll be the ones lighting the fuse."
Sandoval met them in the same conference room as before, but this time she'd brought company. 2 FBI agents in dark suits, a woman from the district attorney's office, and someone from the state attorney general's office. "Mr. Cole, Miss Reeves, this is quite the team you've assembled." Sandoval gestured to chairs. "Start from the beginning." They talked for 3 hours, showed the files, played the recordings, laid out the entire network from the protection rackets to the money laundering to Marcus Reeves's central role. The FBI agents took notes. The DA asked pointed questions, and slowly, carefully, the legal machinery began turning. "This is enough for warrants," one of the FBI agents said finally. "We can have teams moving by tomorrow morning." "What about witness protection?" Ethan asked. "For you and your daughter, yes. We can arrange that. Ms. Reeves, we'll need to assess your risk level." "I'm not going into witness protection," Alexandra said. "Whatever happens, I'll face it. Your father will retaliate." "Let him try." The meeting broke up around 11. Sandoval walked Ethan and Alexandra to the parking lot. "This is going to get ugly," she said. "Reeves has lawyers, resources, political connections. Even with everything you've given us, it's going to be a fight." "Then we fight," Ethan said. "Just be prepared for how dirty it'll get." She was right. The news broke the next morning. Federal raids on 17 properties. Arrests of Richard Chen and 14 Sentinel risk management employees. Seizure of financial records and digital evidence. By noon, Marcus Reeves had been taken into custody for questioning. By evening, he'd been released on $10 million bail, standing on the courthouse steps proclaiming his innocence and promising to fight these baseless accusations. Alexandra watched the press conference from Ethan's apartment, her face unreadable. "He's going to claim I fabricated evidence," she said quietly, "that I was trying to take over the business, that this whole investigation was a power play. Will anyone believe that? Enough people, the ones who matter." Ethan's phone rang. Unknown number. He considered not answering, but answered anyway. "Mr. Cole." It was the man from the park. "You made an interesting choice." "I made the right choice." "Did you?" "Because Marcus Reeves is currently free and planning his revenge, and you're exactly where I warned you not to be." "Then I'll deal with it." "You can't deal with it alone, but fortunately you don't have to. Check your email." The line went dead. Ethan opened his email. There was a message from an encrypted address with a single attachment. He downloaded it. It was a video file. He played it. The video showed Marcus Reeves in what looked like a private office talking to Richard Chen. The audio was clear. They were discussing the murder of the 2 guards, with Reeves explicitly ordering the hit. "Where did this come from?" Alexandra asked, leaning over his shoulder. "The man from the park. He said he represented certain interests." "Intelligence community?" "Probably, and they just handed us the smoking gun." Ethan forwarded the video to Sandoval with a brief note. "Additional evidence. Source protected but verifiable." The response came within minutes. "This changes everything. Warrant being prepared for Reeves's rearrest." By midnight, Marcus Reeves was back in custody. This time, there was no bail. The video had sealed his fate. The trial took 8 months. Ethan and Lily spent that time in a safe house in Montana, living under assumed names, trying to build some kind of normal life while the legal process ground forward. Alexandra testified against her father. It broke her, but she did it anyway, standing in that courtroom and telling the truth about what she'd found and what her investigation had revealed. In the end, Marcus Reeves was convicted on 43 counts, including money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit murder. He was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. Richard Chen got 20 years. 14 Sentinel risk management employees took plea deals in exchange for testimony, and the network itself was dismantled, property by property, account by account, until there was nothing left but evidence boxes and legal documentation. Ethan and Lily returned to the city in late summer. The FBI had offered them permanent relocation, new identities, a complete fresh start. Ethan had declined. "We're done running," he told the agent handling their case. "We're done hiding. We get our lives back." Their old apartment had been rented to someone else, so they found a new place. Bigger, better neighborhood. Lily got enrolled in a new school, one where nobody knew her story or her father's. On their first night in the new apartment, Lily sat at the kitchen table making paper cranes while Ethan unpacked boxes. "How many now?" he asked. She consulted a notebook where she'd been keeping count. 873. Getting close to 1,000. Yeah. And then I get my wish. "What are you going to wish for?" She looked up, serious. "I already know, but I can't tell you. Rules are rules. But it's a good wish, one that'll help people." Ethan smiled. "I don't doubt it." A knock at the door interrupted them. Ethan checked the peephole and found Alexandra standing in the hallway, holding a bottle of wine and looking nervous. He opened the door. "This is a surprise. I should have called, but I was in the neighborhood and thought—" She trailed off. "Is this okay? Me being here?" "Come in." She stepped inside, taking in the boxes, the sparse furniture, Lily's paper cranes covering every available surface. "Hi, Lily," Alexandra said. "Hi. Do you know how to fold cranes?" "I don't." "I can teach you. It's easy once you learn the pattern." They spent the evening in the new apartment, the three of them, drinking wine and juice respectively, folding paper, talking about everything except trials and prisons and fathers who'd chosen wrong. Later, after Lily had gone to bed and Alexandra was getting ready to leave, she stopped at the door. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not letting me walk away. For pushing me to do the right thing even when it destroyed everything I thought I knew." "You did that yourself." "Maybe. But you gave me permission to try." She hesitated. "I'm starting something new. A foundation. Helping victims of white-collar crime. People who get crushed by the system. I could use someone with your skills, someone who understands how these networks operate." "I'm just a maintenance contractor." "We both know that's not true." Ethan thought about it. About Lily growing up seeing her father actually helping people instead of just surviving. About using the skills he'd tried to bury for something other than violence. "Let me think about it," he said. "Take all the time you need. The offer stands." She left, and Ethan stood in his new apartment, looking at the boxes and the cranes and the life he was building from pieces of the one he'd lost. His phone buzzed. A text from Officer Sandoval. "Congratulations. You did good work." Another buzz. "The man from the park." "Well played, Mr. Cole. The offer regarding Raven Unit is withdrawn. You've earned your peace." Ethan deleted both messages and checked on Lily one final time. She was asleep, paper cranes arranged in careful patterns around her bed, her notebook open to a page where she'd written in careful letters, "Wish number 1000, help daddy, help people." He closed the notebook gently and turned off the light. In the kitchen, he made himself tea and sat at the table, looking at the small paper crane Lily had given him that first night. He'd carried it through everything, the confrontations, the investigation, the trial, the months in hiding. A tiny piece of folded paper that had somehow become a symbol of everything worth protecting. The news was playing on his laptop, showing footage of various nonprofit organizations working to help victims of corporate crime. One of them was Alexandra's new foundation, already making waves with high-profile cases and aggressive advocacy. Ethan closed the laptop and picked up his phone. He texted Alexandra. "I'm in. When do I start?" The response came immediately. "Tomorrow, if you're ready." He wasn't ready, not really. There were still nightmares about Kandahar, about the choices he'd made and the people he'd lost. There was still the knowledge that the man from the park and whoever he represented were out there, watching, waiting. But ready or not, life moved forward, and for the first time in 7 years, Ethan felt like he was moving with it instead of running from it. He went to bed thinking about tomorrow, about the foundation, about using his skills to protect people instead of just himself. And for the first time since his wife had died, he fell asleep without dreading what morning would bring. 3 months later, the foundation had grown to 15 staff members and was handling cases in 8 states. Ethan worked as a consultant, using his unique understanding of how criminal networks operated to help investigators find evidence and build cases. Lily started a paper crane club at her school, teaching other kids the art of folding hope into paper. By December, they'd collectively made over 10,000 cranes and donated them to hospitals, nursing homes, and community centers. Alexandra's relationship with her father ended the day she testified. He wrote her one letter from prison, which she burned without reading. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. The story made national news for a few weeks, then faded as newer scandals took over the headlines. But the impact rippled outward in ways that couldn't be measured by ratings or clicks. 18 victims of the protection racket came forward, their stories validating what Ethan and Alexandra had exposed. Most received settlements. Some got justice. All got the acknowledgement that what had happened to them mattered. 4 other hotel chains launched internal investigations after the Reeves case, uncovering similar corruption in their own operations. Dozens more arrests followed, and slowly, incrementally, the conversation shifted. Corporate crime started being taken seriously. White-collar criminals faced real consequences. The system, flawed as it was, began to work. On a Saturday morning in late December, Ethan took Lily to Jefferson Park. Snow had fallen overnight, covering the playground in white, making everything look clean and new. They sat on the same bench where everything had started, where the man from the park had first appeared with his offers and threats. "This is where you met the bad man," Lily said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah." "Are you scared he'll come back?" "No, I think he got what he wanted. Information about whether I'd fight or run. And now he knows." Lily pulled out a paper crane, one she'd folded that morning. "This is my 1,000th one." "You made your wish?" "I did, but it already came true." "Yeah? What was it?" She smiled. "I wish that you'd stop being scared, that you'd be the person you were supposed to be instead of hiding." Ethan felt tears sting his eyes. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just finally noticed." They sat there in the cold, watching snow fall on the playground, and Ethan thought about the path that had brought them here. The mistakes and the choices, the violence and the courage, the simple act of standing up when it would have been easier to walk away. He'd lost 7 years trying to be someone he wasn't, but he'd gained something too. A daughter who understood that strength wasn't about fighting, but about choosing when to stand and when to yield. A friend who'd sacrificed everything for truth, and a purpose that went beyond just surviving. The man from the park had asked him once what kind of father starts a fight with his daughter, watching. The answer, Ethan had learned, was simple. The kind who wants his daughter to grow up knowing that some things are worth fighting for. That power without conscience is tyranny. That quiet strength matters more than loud victory. And that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is fold a paper crane and believe it might actually help. "Come on, kiddo," Ethan said, standing. "Let's go home. Can we make hot chocolate? With marshmallows. The tiny ones or the big ones? Your choice." She took his hand and they walked back to the truck through the falling snow, leaving footprints that would disappear by evening but mattered in the moment they existed. Behind them, the park was empty except for the swings moving gently in the wind and a single paper crane sitting on the bench, left there by a 7-year-old girl who believed in the power of folded hope. The crane would be gone by morning, blown away or buried in snow or claimed by someone who needed it. But for now, it stood guard over the place where everything had changed, a small reminder that the quietest gestures sometimes make the loudest difference. And that was enough.